Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this meeting of the Council of the Town of Oakville, the last meeting for 2014. And I'm very pleased to see so many members of the public here with us tonight. And I'd like to invite everyone to stand and join Council in O Canada. Thank you. Please be seated. I will now give our opening prayer, followed by our moment of silent reflection, followed by the beginning of our meeting proper. God, grant us understanding and patience, that justice, truth, and honesty may be evident in our decisions. Make us mindful of the needs of the people throughout the town of Oakville. Help us govern with the wider community in mind, and so create in us a desire for progress and responsible action. We ask this in your name. Amen. Thank you, everyone. Council, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Thank you. You have before you the minutes of the regular session of Council from December 1st and December 8th. And how do you wish to proceed? Councillor Khan and Councillor Knoll move and second the minutes. Any corrections? All in favor? Opposed, if any? And that's carried. And as the clerk points out, we have regrets from Councillor Lapworth. Council, it's my pleasure now to acknowledge the LEED Silver Certification Award from the Canada Green Building Council to the Town of Oakville Facilities and Construction Management and Recreation and Culture Departments for achieving certification for the Queen Elizabeth Park Community and Cultural Center, or QEPCC, as I think we're supposed to affectionately refer to it. And affectionate or not, we got quite a handsome award for it. And if this was, if I had longer arms, they zoomed in on the Queen. Anyway, there you go. There you go. The shot is up, and that is our LEED award, and we're all very proud of that. And we especially appreciate the hard work of our staff that made this possible. I believe that achieving silver exceeded our goals, and a hearty well done from all of us on council to all of you who made it happen. Thank you very much. But that's not all. We also, as I understand it, have received the Silver Certification Award from the Recycling Council of Ontario to the Town of Oakville Environmental Policy Department for achieving 3R certification for Town Hall. And if you don't like the wood and plexi approach, perhaps you like this. So it's got a nice green background. I'm not sure about green and purple, but I guess somebody artistic thought they went together. We are the first municipality to receive such an honor for a municipal building and one of only 16 buildings in Ontario to be 3R certified. And we adopted our Toward Zero Waste procedure and sustainable purchasing procedure 5 years ago in 2009, and we've made award-winning progress on limiting and diverting waste at all town facilities and special events. Our environmental policy staff, under the direction of Cindy Toth, are here for your thanks, Council. And Cindy, why don't you put your hand up? There you go. Thank you very much, one and all. Now, after that, how about, I think it would be in order to have a little bit of a photograph of the awards, and Council and I, and the staff. And in order to make that work, I thought maybe staff and I could stand in the center, and Council could be behind, and we'll get a camera shooting this way, and it's as good a picture as we got in here, if you'll let me play film director like that. All right? And I'll bring the awards. I'm going to shut off the mic.
I can do 2 or 3, but.
Remember, you need to see the camera and be seen by it. So move yourselves accordingly. Everybody happy? All right, well, thank you, everybody. We have no delegations listed tonight, and that brings us to the Standing Committee and Committee of the Whole reports. And what we have are the Community Services Committee meeting report from December 15th and the Administrative Services Committee report from December 15th. Councillor Adams.
I'd move both. There's a minor change. I think on page 25, Councillor Kathy Duddick was missing from the list, and I think she needs to replace one of the Roger Lapworths.
All right. So is that a correction the clerk can make? And is there a second? Councillor Khan, thank you. Does Councillor Duddick agree?
Yes. I'm not sure where he's referring to.
Councillor, would you spell it out for the clerk?
Oh, well, I believe Roger Lapworth was regrets for that meeting, and I believe Councillor Duddick was present. And in the individuals present, Roger Lapworth is listed, and he's also listed as being with regrets. So he's the most amazing councillor that we have, because he can be both present and not present at the same time.
I think we're clear now. All right? Any others? All in favor? Opposed, if any? And those reports are adopted as corrected. Now, Council, you have before you the confidential consent item, late breaking, that's on your desk. Councillor Duddick. Councillor Duddick moves it. Councillor Demoff, you're seconding? All right. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, and that is carried. Now, that brings us to our first discussion item, and that is the Oakville Hydro Quarterly Report. With a great deal of pleasure, I welcome Oakville Hydro President Rob Lister to brief us on his quarterly update.
Thank you, Mayor Burton, members of the council. Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to present an update on Oakville Hydro. This evening, I'm going to turn the podium over to Amanda Kennedy, who's my Vice President of Communications and Conservation and our Chief Conservation Officer at Oakville Hydro. She's going to provide us with an uplifting presentation this evening, and when Amanda's finished, we'd be happy to answer any questions. And I'm going to turn it over to Amanda.
That was a nice intro. Thanks, Rob. Good evening, Your Worship, and all the best of the season to councillors. I bring greetings to all of councillors and a warm welcome to the two new councillors that are here, Councillor Hutchings and Councillor O'Mara. In addition to Rob, I'm pleased to introduce the members of the rest of our executive management team that are here with us. Some of them may be familiar to you, but I'm just going to introduce them. Jim Collins, our Chief Financial Officer, is here. Scott Moody, our Chief Operating Officer with the Competitive Energy Services Group. Mike Brown, our Chief Operating Officer of Oakville Hydro Electricity Distribution. Mike. Simon Abbott is our Vice President of Human Resources and Business Services. Vivek Radhakrishnan is our Corporate Secretary. And we also have a member of our Board of Directors here, John Mitchell. Great. So tonight, I'm pleased to present Oakville Hydro's quarterly update to Council, and I'm just going to open it up for everybody. Maybe not. Super. And as we set it up, I'll just say that we've chosen to focus on enhancements related to the customer experience tonight. And specifically, what I'm going to focus on are three things. One is how we help our customers reduce electricity use. Second, how we engage our community, and I'd like to share some highlights of the past year. And third, how we prepare systems and people in the case of unforeseen and severe events. And can you believe that exactly 1 year ago today was the ice storm? I bet everybody remembers where they were. When I say that, it's really evocative, and I think people really remember where they were a year ago today. But a lot has happened since that ice storm, and that's what I'm going to update you on today. And as you know, we provide electricity to over 66,000 families and businesses in Oakville. And in the spirit of the season, and to bring a face and a name to some of those customers, I'm going to weave a bit of a story tonight, if you don't mind, about one such customer into our presentation. And some of these stories start like this. There once was a resident called Aaliyah. Aaliyah lives in a house with her mom and a big brown dog. One night in October, 3 or 4 of her pot lights went out. All of a sudden, they just went out. So she was left in a dim house. She decided to head out to go get some replacements, when all of a sudden she heard a voice, and the voice said, "Coupons, coupons, don't forget the coupons." So the voice prompted Aaliyah to log on to oakvillehydro.com and find the link to save on energy, print herself out at least $20 worth of coupons, and head out to buy some new LED bulbs. Helping customers find and use coupons for energy-efficient products such as light bulbs, weather strippings, and power bars is just one of the programs that we offer. At Oakville Hydro, one of our core mandates is to help families and businesses reduce their electricity use. In essence, reducing electricity demand through the implementation of conservation programs helps Ontario save investment on future expensive energy generation. And on January 1st in the province, we're going to enter into a new framework, and that's called the Conservation First Framework. And this guarantees that we're going to continue our conservation mandate for at least the next 6 years. Existing conservation programs like our popular Peak Saver Plus thermostat, and I know many of you have that installed in your own homes, retrofits to lighting, heating, and cooling systems, and yes, those coupons. Oakville is actually a very popular place in the province for coupon use, if you can believe it. Will continue as we transition into the new framework. Residents like Aaliyah and her mom will witness a seamless transition as we make this transition internally. The framework carries with it very aggressive provincial and local targets. However, we do have an opportunity here Over the next 6 years, local distribution companies like Oakville Hydro will have more scope for creativity around how we can achieve these targets. So we're working closely with the town's energy team, to look for new opportunities and as we develop our plan to achieve these aggressive targets. Early in the new year, we're going to be going out with a program to seek stakeholder feedback. But let's get back to our story. One sunny morning in November, Aaliyah woke up early. As she made her way down to breakfast, she again heard that voice. And this time it said, the chairs, don't forget the chairs. So Aaliyah realized the time. She ran down to the basement, she grabbed her lawn chairs, and she dashed out the door. But why the chairs in November, you ask? You know why. Well, Aaliyah needed to get front row seats for the Santa Claus parade, of course. Oakville Hydro staff were there too. We were up early that morning, checking out our float and making sure that our Oakville Saves banner was stuck tight on our truck. We're proud to be actively involved in our local community. In 2014, staff planned and organized over 15 fundraising events for local charitable organizations. Rob Lister, our CEO, is highly involved in the United Way of Oakville as a 2014 Community Leadership Co-Chair. Over the last month, we saw a 50% increase in the United Way Leadership Volunteer Program at our 861 Redwood Square location, including a number of town staff that actually work at our headquarters. Some other highlights of the past year include a mountain of gifts donated for the Halton Region Police Services, Toys for Tots, a number of safety events at local high schools with Rob Ellis's My Safe Work, and as many of you know, safety is our top priority at Oakville Hydro. The Oakville Clean Sweep in April. Second place in the United Way Bus Pull, where we were a title sponsor. He's looking like he should be getting first place with that level of effort. And Aaliyah, in case you and your mom are watching tonight on Town TV, I can assure you that we will be there next year at next year's Santa Claus Parade. And we'll be there again at over 15 conservation-related events in the community. Over the holidays, I want you to look for our signage. We're going to be there at the Polar Bear Dip and at the downtown Oakville skating rink hosted by the local BIA downtown. So did I already mention that Aaliyah lived with her mom? Well, just last week, her mom was scraped her finger while shredding fresh ginger for some homemade cookies. A voice cried out, and this time it was no mystery who that voice was. A Band-Aid, I need a Band-Aid. Luckily, they were prepared. Aaliyah already had developed an in-house emergency kit, so she was prepared for an unforeseen accident. On a similar note, but on a much different scale, Oakville Hydro's intention is to prepare our systems and our staff for unforeseen service events, such as last year's ice storm or worse. Over the last year, we've enhanced our systems capabilities to enable more efficient monitoring, information collection, and service restoration. One example that I'm able to announce tonight is an outage management system that will be available to businesses and families that will help them visualize outages with estimated times of restoration in a map-based format. We've launched this internally and expect an external launch this spring. Internally, we're continuously improving our processes and procedures in the case of an emergency. And in 2014, staff worked to enhance the emergency operations plan based on learnings out of the ice storm. And of course, there are ongoing efforts with town and regional staff to work together to enhance existing collaborative efforts. Examples, some of those in the room might remember, are work with forestry staff on the recent tree trimming consultation, work with Service Oakville staff to understand capabilities and ensure up-to-date information is in their hands when they receive calls. So another key aspect of operational readiness is having the capability to answer those calls when they come in and to communicate with customers like Aaliyah and her family in the case of an emergency. Over the last year, Oakville Hydro has enhanced its communications abilities to address high call volumes during broad-scale events. We've added physical line capability, trained power outage agents, and engaged Service Oakville staff in information transfer. When residents call with a power outage, really, they just want to know one thing. When's my power going to be back? So we've spent time and resources to improve our capabilities to communicate to families and businesses on the current state and the estimated time of restoration. And some of the tactics that help us communicate this information about outages are strengthened web access, social media, Aaliyah follows us on Twitter, as I know many of you do, and having our call center staff equipped with outage status and the outage management system that I mentioned earlier. So we might never know who that voice was that spoke to her in the dark. But we do know that Aaliyah is a satisfied customer. She knows that we at Oakville Hydro always aim to be there when you need us, and hope that most of the time you don't even know that we're there. You don't even know that we're right alongside you, lighting up the community. But do you hear a voice tonight? Is there a voice in the room? I hear a voice. It's saying, the contest, the contest. Don't forget about the contest. So we do have a contest underway that I will remind you about. We have a contest for e-billing. So I encourage everybody to go to myoakvillehydro.com and register for a chance to win a tablet, iPod, or laptop. And as an aside, for council's information on the contest, we've actually exceeded our goals already. The contest is going to close in another 2.5 weeks, but we're already up to over 12% of residents or our customers that have signed up for e-billing, so it's great. So good luck to all entrants. Anybody that still enters will still be entered to win. Have a wonderful, light-filled holiday season, everybody. My colleagues and I are here, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have on the content that I presented tonight or anything else that's on your minds. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Councillor Khan has a question for you.
Sure.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Do all your customers hear voices? Is that
Maybe it's
unique
just
to
me.
Aaliyah?
I hope it's just me.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm not sure if you can answer this, or
Sure.
maybe we'll get Mr. Lister to answer this. I was just speaking to Councillor Adams here about the Auditor General report that came out about smart meters. And I want to know, because you're the VP Communication, how we've been dealing with that. Have we received a lot of calls, a lot of complaints? And what information can you provide people of Oakville?
Rob, do you want to talk about that, or do you want me to? Sure, I can just say that in terms of what we received from residents of Oakville, we haven't really received any concerns, but we did, do you want to speak to it? We have, just from a customer perspective, that's what I can say, that we haven't received a lot of questions or concerns.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Khan. Yeah, absolutely. No inquiries from the customer or the media on the particular topic that's come our way. There's certainly been a lot in the more Toronto-based media on the topic. From our perspective, we've certainly got a lot of value out of the smart meter program, and what the Auditor General didn't really zone in on is the benefits that go beyond the time of use pricing that go into our ability to determine whether a house is receiving electricity. We can use the smart meters to interrogate, which we did a lot in the last in the ice storm, in which we're able to determine which customers were on or which customers were out, that type of thing. We also have some remote disconnect capabilities with some meters. So from our perspective, we found that there's a lot of value in it, and don't necessarily support the Auditor General's view of it not being a good investment for the residents.
In other words, that doesn't change our policies. We're moving forward with the program, and we're still installing smart meters.
Smart meters have been installed in every residential home in Oakville and have been for some time now, and so we're just following the provincial program of time of use rates, and it's been something that's been in place for quite a while now.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Giddings.
Thank you so much. A couple of questions. Under operational readiness, you've started pruning trees over the hydro lines in the southern wards. Just wondering the scope of that. That is just currently underway?
Yep.
You want definitive information? We'll get Mike Brown to give you very specific information.
We'll
on
have
the
you all
program.
up there in a minute.
Yeah, I know, that'd be great.
Yeah, in regards to the tree pruning or the line clearance program, there's about a third of, I would say, the geographic area of Oakville that's actually in our program to start in January of 2015. We held an open consultation session for customers and residents, et cetera, in December. So it was really focused on that. We've done some preliminary work with town staff on assessing that ahead of time. So it's approximately 1/3, and it's in the eastern sector of Oakville.
And how long will it take to cover that off? Is it weather dependent, or?
Weather is a big dependency on this, and we started in January because it's the de-leaf part of the year. It's slow, and we try to complete it by the end of April nominally. Sometimes it moves into the middle of May, but we're out of there because the intent with town forestry staff is to make sure that we do not impact any of the new bud on the leaf on the trees as the start of the growth season.
And how do we let the residents know? I know I've received some phone calls and emails from people saying, you know, what are they doing? Do we have the ability to put that as a stuffer by
Yes.
postal code or?
Yes, actually, that's exactly what we have done. We also hand deliver notices into those particular areas that we are actually going at. And the one additional element that we used this year was, as I said, the public consultation and information session to get it to a broader scope of insight for our residents.
Great, thank you very much. One other question in terms of, you mentioned the increased number of physical phone lines, and you referenced Service Oakville in the unlikely, unwanted case of another emergency like last year. Could you just expand a little bit on the Service Oakville component of that?
Sure. So Service Oakville has a direct connection to Oakville Hydro. So any customers that call into Service Oakville that have information or questions about outages, we have provided Service Oakville staff. They're on our distribution list for information. So if they have information, simple information about outages, Service Oakville staff are now able to answer those questions. If it's more complex and they need more complex information, they can be bounced back to Oakville Hydro through the press of a button and transferred back.
So if a resident were to call Service Oakville, they'd be kept up to date in
They
terms
can
of bouncing back unprecedented volumes a year ago.
Yes.
So would that be able to bounce back?
Yes.
And we would be able to staff that accordingly, or recording just to let people know?
Do you want to answer about the capability of the phone line? So there are technicalities with the phone lines, and there has been a lot of work behind the scenes actually to expand the phone line capability at Oakville Hydro. It's been really interesting to watch what's happened. But yes, the phone lines have been increased. We went from, I think, 12 up to 140.
Well,
Mike would know the exact numbers, but.
During the ice storm last year, we had probably 12 active lines that we could take concurrent calls on, in addition to our call answer service. We have now upgraded that fourfold, and we're now in the process, I think it's about mid to end January, we'll have what's called SIP trunks, which are internet protocol trunks that allow you to expand by bandwidth. So we could probably go up to the equivalent over 100 lines. Plus we have additional capacity with our Power Assist 24/7 service of additional 40 lines. So 140 is what our potential capacity would be, which is pretty significant for concurrent calls in. Plus we have access through internet and other means as well.
Right. So if you had 140 lines, let's hope we never ever need that sort of width. Does that involve 140 people on the side of that, and we have that capability?
We have that capacity if we were to bring in additional staff, and we would put our call service agents on. We have an outage management call service capability that's in place as well. So you could, in effect, put that on. Anybody over, say, 140 concurrent calls would actually sit in a queue for a couple of minutes before they'd actually be moved off or receive a message so that they could leave a message. So we have that capacity to do so.
Good stuff. Here's hoping we don't have to use it.
Thank you, Councillor Giddings. Thank you very much for the information and the report. Council, can we have a motion and a second? Councillor Elgar moves receipt. Councillor Grant, I think, is seconding. All those in favor? And that carries. Council, I would ask now that the acting mayor take the chair so that I may be excused to avoid any perception of conflict, even though I have obtained legal advice that I do not have a conflict under the meaning of the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act on the item that is before you next. It's my hope that you'll call me back when you finish the item so that I can resume chairing the meeting. Thank you very much.
Okay, members of council, I'm going to ask if our staff have any introductory remarks on this item. No? Okay. Very good. Members of council, you have before you the report. Councillor Knoll, the
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. I actually am prepared to make a motion at this point if it's in order.
I believe it is. I will ask if there's any members of the public here to speak to it. I don't see any. So go ahead.
Okay.
Floor is yours.
Mr. Acting Mayor, I've thoroughly reviewed all the documentation submitted by Mr. McLaughlin as well as the applicable town policies and provincial legislation. And I'm satisfied that the complaint before us, the complaints, plural, before us are vexatious in nature. Pursuing these allegations further is not in the best interest of the taxpayers of the town of Oakville or in the interest of distracting this council from the important agenda that we've been elected to execute. The election is over. It's time to move on and put our attention to governing. Therefore, I move option number 1, which is to receive the report.
Okay, Councillor Knoll has moved receipt of the report. Are you also moving in any way a note to formally not proceed with sending this to the option 1 simply says council may choose not to authorize the integrity officer. So do you wish to actually move that council not authorize the integrity officer?
I think that was accomplished through receipt, but if, I mean, maybe we turn to legal staff to find out what the appropriate enabling
Mr. Carr?
motion would be, but I think receipt's sufficient. Yeah.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Acting Chair, that was the intention of option 1, and that is if council were to simply receive the report, there would not be the authorization to the integrity officer to conduct the inquiry.
Very good. It's then been moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Dudek, thank you. Then any speakers? Councillor Dumoff?
Actually, I have a question for staff. According to our policies, the integrity officer would come back to us with a preliminary report, would they not, to determine whether or not this was, I was looking at the wording here, to determine whether or not it should be pursued. So that would be the first step, would be they would look at it and determine whether it was a viable complaint or not.
I'll field that if I might, Mr. Acting Chair. In the staff report before you, it being item number 2 in the agenda, on page 38 is the applicable procedure. And I refer the councillor to, under formal complaints, step 4, which is exactly as the councillor has suggested. If council were to authorize the integrity commissioner to conduct an inquiry, the first step would be to provide to the clerk a preliminary response setting out those items A to E in the procedure.
Okay, thank you.
Just a correction, sorry, it's A to F, my apologies.
What's that?
A to F, sorry, I didn't see the.
I just, in terms of openness and transparency, have a problem with us determining whether or not this is something that should be investigated or not, and I would be more comfortable if it was someone outside of council, so I will not be supporting the motion.
Any other speakers? Councillor Knoll?
I just want to state, I've been through this process before, and in fact, the legislation is written in such a way that that is our job, is to make that determination. And one of the things we determine is whether or not there are grounds to send this off and create an expense as well as a distraction. And that is something that is afforded by legislation and is empowered, and not is expected of us to actually do, is to be the first line of vetting such complaints. And I strongly recommend that if you look at the documentation, if you look at what's presented there, this is strictly a political complaint, and giving it any legs whatsoever is simply to distract us, distract our staff, and to spend money needlessly. So I would strongly encourage my colleagues to vote in favor of the receipt of this motion or the receipt of this report.
Councillor Khan?
Just to the Councillor Demoff, we're required to look at it. That's the code. That's the legislation. We can't shy away from it. You might not like that now, but that's not what's on the floor right now. On the floor right now is what do we want to do with it? and each of us is required to address it. And you might want a third party to look at it, but that's not open for discussion right now. So the question is, how do you want to vote on this today?
Thank you very much. Councillor O'Meara?
Sorry, still new. Sorry, so just to address, I think that's exactly, it is what we're discussing right now, no, is whether to have a third party look at this. So by sending it off to the Integrity Commissioner or not. I mean, I think that's the point Councillor Demoff is trying to make here. She doesn't feel comfortable making it. But my other point, and I think we should be very careful in belittling what has been written here in the affidavit and what has been brought before this council to make a decision on, because while you know, you're free to clarify it as politically driven and vexatious and these sorts of terms, you know, I think I can speak as one of the only councillors who was not a councillor prior to this and who ran against an incumbent that there are some issues that need to be discussed here, and if not tonight, then maybe later. But you know, we are at a point here where you know, I don't feel comfortable throwing this out the door and saying, well, this is just politically driven. There are issues that need to be addressed here. And, you know, it was my understanding that we'd just be receiving this report. But it sounds to me like we're receiving this report with the intention of just dismissing it and putting it in a bag somewhere, which is a conversation coming out right now, which I don't feel comfortable with either. So I just wanted to express my feelings on that. Thank you.
Any other first-time speakers? Councillor Grant?
Just quickly, because it's come up a couple of times, do we know what the cost would be to have the Integrity Commissioner take a look at this?
The cost is in the reports through.
Sorry, yes.
It is about $11,000. For the last one that we conducted.
And also too, just some of the comments about, and I'm sorry, I did read that, I guess just I was distracted by another thought, which was that we do have this conversation right now about how serious everybody should take this, and I believe that's true, we should, but the person making the complaints has not shown this evening, and that speaks to me in a certain way, so I will be supporting the motion to receive.
Any other first-time speakers? Councillor Demoff?
Thank you. I actually just wanted to address myself what Councillor Khan had asked, and I'm not comfortable just receiving the report, so should Councillor Knoll's motion fail, I would present a motion that the integrity officer look at it. And if I recall the last time we did this, we did receive a preliminary report back. It did not cost us $11,000. That was for the full report, if I remember correctly. Could you clarify that for me?
Yes, the 11,000 would be for the full report. But there, we can clarify that to all of council, because I believe after that there may have been further costs added to the bill. That amount that's in the report is what the integrity officer included in his report, in his final report. But there may have been further costs after that we have to check into.
Thank you.
Any others? Okay. Councillor Knoll, go ahead.
I think, I won't speak any more beyond this, but I think at the end of the day, again, I've been through this before. I've been through submitting a report. In fact, my name's even cited in one of these documents. I think then the reality is that in the arbitration of political disputes, the arbiter and the judge is the public. And I think it needs to be left to the public to decide beyond, you know, we fulfill our responsibility by reviewing the documentation, making a determination whether or not this is a viable complaint to go forward. That's written, that's in the legislation. That's part of the plan. That's part of what the province has given us the power to do. That's what we're expected to do. I'm suggesting to you that I, for one, have done that. Using a lot of the knowledge that I learned last time, having gone through this and consulted lawyers and doing everything. I don't believe there's anything in here that is not completely political in nature. And I think that frankly, you know, if you've read the documentation and you've rendered an opinion, you know, I think, you know, and I think the majority of us have, I think that that's sufficient at this point. I think spending time, spending money, spending capital, political capital of this council on dealing with this going forward and waiting months and having everybody firing letters back and forth about essentially what is a political situation. I mean, at the end of the day, what did bus shelters do to move the needle on that election? What did one sign in a park do to move the needle of the election? Frankly, what did the endorsement do? I mean, Councillor O'Meara is sitting here as a result of the fact that challengers can win. I think that this is strictly political. I think it's a shame that we're spending taxpayers' dollars on doing this. You know, the reference to the hydro issue that I brought up last time's in here. You know what? The hydro issue, we brought it up. Policy was changed at Oakville Hydro. They're here. We actually won a victory because there was an error made and the legislation, the rules were changed. That was a tangible thing. This is simply politics. This is the grievances of political challengers, and if we give this legs, then you got to be careful what you wish for, because this is what's going to become the norm going forward, is that political challengers are going to be going after each other. You did this, and it's going to look like the City of Toronto.
Councillor Khan?
I want to concur with Councillor Knowles said so eloquently. He's absolutely correct that he was involved in something like this before, and I was on the other end of something like this before. And I have to tell you that it was frivolous, it was vexatious, and I have no doubt that it was only brought in for political gain. And in fact, as a lot of you were on council at the time, the Integrity Commissioner came back and I asked him pointedly, do you believe that this is politically motivated? And he said in the affirmative, yes. And so here we are again with the same type of issues. And I would submit to my council friends here that where there is a legitimate concern, we will all rise. But when we're faced with frivolous accusations, we also have to shut that down. And that's why I'm going to be supporting Councillor Knowles' motion.
Okay. Any others? Very good. Then I'll call the question. All those in favor of option 1, which is to receive the report? All those against? Thank you very much. The motion carries. We're going to take a very brief recess to allow the mayor to return.
Because anybody can rent it, and I'm sensitive to that. I talked to one council, he doesn't disagree, so he's looking at that. And the one that you can rent, the GO train tracks, and 5 girls,
All right, we'll resume the meeting after that bio break. And we have before us discussion item number 3, the Council Strategic Planning Session Report. And the recommendation is that it be received. Council, anyone? I'll move it. Councillor Elgar moves it. Councillor Adams?
I just wanted to ask our staff whether they would like to have input on the list that they generated now, or if they want us to hold our fire until the appointed date of February 20th.
Ms. Cordemosh.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, that's just very much a preliminary list, just to give you an idea of some of the initiatives that staff have identified. We will be surveying the public in January with our citizen survey. Also, we'll be surveying members of council, so you'll be getting some pre-work prior to the session in February, so we can identify further initiatives, and all of that information will be brought forward. This will be the third full strategic planning session we've done with members of this council, so we'll be bringing it forward, confirming the date for February 20th, and at that point we'll be able to confirm initiatives for 2015 as well as sort of priority areas for the rest of the term of council.
Okay, I raised it because I know there's a bunch of other things going on. There's a transit plan review going on, which I didn't see explicitly in here. There's, you note 2 of the budgets, but not 4 of the budgets. So there's a whole host of little things like that. So I wanted to make sure that I'm not going to be late if I wait till.
No, absolutely not.
That's fine. Then I'll give you, if you need a seconder to receive it, then so be it.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? And that report is received. Council, we now turn to bylaws 2014-139 and 140 to appoint the BIA boards of management for downtown Oakville and Bronte Village business improvement areas. Councillor Robinson?
I move approval, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Dudek seconds. Thank you. All in favor? Opposed, if any? And they are passed. The next item on our agenda is the rich and varied content of our new business section. And you have on your desks updated versions of some of these. And let me call your attention first to the support for the United Steelworkers Stop the Killing, Enforce the Law campaign relative to the West Ray amendments to the Canadian Criminal Code, which is moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Adams, to be considered at the council meeting on January 26th. And also the support for fair trade and open procurement between Canada and the United States motion, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Adams. And I want to thank Councillor Robinson for his suggestion that we change the title to say free and fair, to respect the fact that it concerns itself with both. And this motion, I believe, is actually before us now. And, right? No. No? It's also for January 26th? Oh, it just doesn't say that. Okay. So that's another one to consider. And then we also have the motion from Councillor Robinson, seconded by Councillor Grant, called V for Veterans. And I wonder, Council, if it would be your pleasure to waive the procedure bylaw so that this motion could be considered tonight. Councillor Dudek? Thank you. I need a seconder. Councillor O'Meara, thank you. All in favor of waiving the procedure bylaw? Any against? The procedure bylaw is waived. And Councillor Robinson and Councillor Grant, would you like to speak to your motion?
Your Worship, I will speak first, and I presume that everyone has read it, and it's not complex, but it's lengthy. And I think what I would do, Your Worship, without reciting the whereases, I would like to read the resolution portion, if that's all right with you. Therefore, be it resolved that the town of Oakville support the capitalization of the first letter of the word veteran when referring to our veterans who, through their military service, have made and continue to make tremendous sacrifices for our country. And be it further resolved that the region of Halton be requested to support this request. and be it further resolved that the Government of Canada and the area members of Parliament be requested to legislate the capitalization of the word veteran with a capital V when referring to Canada's veterans. And be it finally resolved that this resolution be forwarded to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities with the request that this resolution be included on the appropriate agenda at the June 2015 convention for deliberation and recommended approval to adopt the capitalization of V in the word veteran. And I got that out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Councillor Grant?
Oh, Councillor Robinson's worked very hard on the wording of this. I don't think there's anything I can add.
Thank you. Any discussion? I'll call the vote then. Councillor Khan?
Thank you very much, Councillor Robinson. I'm going to support your motion, but I have to tell you that I have some significant concerns. And my concerns are this, that it seems, and I know this is not your intent, and I know that you've been working with the veterans for quite some time, and you've been championing their fight, and I appreciate that. But putting in a capital V for veterans, to me, is just a symbolic gesture, almost a hollow gesture. Right now, there are so many veterans dying from committing suicide. So many veterans are engaging in post-service depression. There's a lack of funding. I'm hoping that further down the road, you'll bring something stronger too, that this council send a message to the Government of Canada that they need to do more.
I would appreciate working with you on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. Other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, if any, and that does carry. Now, the other notice of motion has been slightly revised, and that's on your desk. And I think what we're looking for here is a motion and a mover and a seconder to waive the procedure bylaw so that this, although it's being introduced tonight, could be considered in February rather than January, which would have the benefit of giving the public more time for consideration. Is there a mover and seconder to waive the procedure bylaw for that purpose? Councillor Demoff and Councillor Giddings, all in favor? And that carries. Do Councillor Dudek or Councillor Demoff want to speak to their motion tonight, or just, all right. So that's taken care of. And then under new business is also a time for emergency congratulatory or condolence items. Are there any? Councillor Demoff?
Just one very quick one. This year's the 30th anniversary of the Courage Polar Bear Dip, and this morning we did a pre-dip, so I would like to extend an invitation to my colleagues on council who have not already signed up. Councillor Dudek and Councillor O'Meara will be joining me on January the 1st, so anyone else who would like to join in, and that invitation extends to staff and the public, who are all welcome to come out. If you're not brave enough to dip, please do come out and support. It's 20 years they've been supporting World Vision's water projects in Africa, around the world actually, and 30th anniversary of the dip. So if you can't brave the icy water, please do come out and support a great cause. It's also the largest charitable polar bear dip in Canada, so we're privileged to have them here in Oakville, so please do come out.
Thank you, Councillor, and in the same spirit, I'd like to offer my congratulations to you for the prodigious promotional efforts that you've put behind the polar bear dip, going even to the extent of going in water I wouldn't face. So the Pam Demoff promotion machines fully engaged on the polar bear dip, and World Vision and the other beneficiaries will only be the happier for it. So thank you very much for that. Now, Councillor Khan.
I just have a message I'd like to bring as well. It's condolences or regrets or whatever you want to call it. As you're aware, last week, almost 140 students died in Pakistan at the hands of extremist Taliban. And as I had mentioned earlier, we had a little vigil, and I appreciate the councillors getting involved in that these were not the children of Pakistan, but they were the children of humanity, and we all stood together to fight these atrocities and these heinous crimes. So I would ask that if you could lead a moment of silence for these lost children of humanity.
I'm fine with that. Does council concur? A moment of silence. Thank you, Council. I believe that if there are no others, that brings us to the regional reports and question period regarding town boards and advisory committees. Are there any? Seeing none, we have requests for reports in some abundance. You have before you the request for reports. The first is improvements to street tree management, requested by Councillor Adams and Elgar. Shall I put the vote, or do you want to discuss it? I'll put the vote. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? And that report is approved. The next is returning road markings on 6th line to its pre-2014 configuration, brought by Councillor Grant and Councillor Knoll. Councillor Demoff?
I just have a question. What are the markings now? We've got here what they were pre-2014. I'm just curious what they were changed to.
Well, essentially, prior to 2014, it was 3 lanes and then 2 lanes on the side for bikes. Now it's 2 lanes up the middle, 2 lanes for bikes and parking on the side of the road, which isn't working for the community right now. So I'd like to give the public an opportunity in a fair and open space to make their statements on what they'd prefer to see, given that it's been very harsh for them.
All right, so we're all clear that a request for report is not a decision to do anything. Rather, it's an opportunity to afford council a public platform at a council meeting for the public to bring their information. All right, I'll put the vote. All those in favor of the report? Opposed, if any? And that report is approved. Next, we have an on-street parking relief on Hayes Boulevard, brought by Councillor Knoll and Councillor Grant. The staff be requested to report back to council on options to provide on-street parking to the new home developments northeast of 6th Line and Hayes Boulevard, which should include, but not be limited to, extended time of day parking. And again, this is a report, not a decision. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? The report is approved. Now, do I have the correct version? I think I do. The final one I know of is fines for election signs on public property, the request is brought by Councillor Dudek and Councillor Demoff. That staff be requested to report back to council on February 23rd regarding how fines could be set that would be reflective of the costs that the town incurs to enforce the bylaw prohibiting election signs on public property. Is there discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? The request for report is approved. That brings us to consideration and reading of the bylaws, and I wonder if I could have a mover and seconder of the bylaws. Councillor Elgar and Councillor Grant, thank you. This is the authority for the bylaws listed in the agenda. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? The bylaws are adopted. That completes our agenda. Thank you for your time and attention. It's been great working with you, and we are adjourned.